We started these mighty conversations 2 decades ago, and there's no time like the present to talk about the things that are important. I'm Commissioner Khadijah, and this is the Mighty Six Conversations. Welcome to Mighty Six Conversations. I'm Commissioner Khadijah of the Mighty Six Commission District of Fulton County, Georgia. The topic for today's conversation, Fulton County's children and youth. What's going on? Joining me in the conversation today is Bruce Griggs. Mr. Griggs is the founder of Saving Our Sons Rite of Passage program. Mr. Griggs grew weary of seeing young black men in handcuffs. That is one of the reasons he started the Saving Our Sons Rite of Passage program as part of the John Lewis Street Academy. It was created to give at-risk youth an alternative to the streets and deals directly with anger management. Griggs believes gang violence should be treated for what it truly is, a disease. When we come back, our conversation, stay with us. Bruce Griggs, tell us a little bit about Bruce, who he is and where he's from, and how did you get to this point in your life?
Thank you again for having me, Commissioner. My name is Bruce Griggs. I am the co-founder and executive director of Operation Correct Start Street Academy. I'm originally from LaGrange, Georgia, but I was born here in Atlanta. I'm a Grady baby. But I was adopted at the early age of 6 months. My parents, who were both educators, my mother was a high school teacher in LaGrange, Georgia. She taught home economics for over 35 years, and my father was a principal. He was a principal of an elementary school, but he also was the director of the recreation center where we lived, which was a very weird situation because my dad lived on top of the center that he ran. So a swimming pool was below my house. I saw my father work with kids, work with adults all my life. I grew up having people every summer come to my house, like the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss Jr. come and thank my daddy for contributing in his life. The baseball player from the Negro Leagues baseball, Mr. Larry Williams, coming by every summer to thank my daddy for contributing in his life. Mr. John B. Smith from the Atlanta Inquirer coming by every summer to thank my daddy. And it gave me an impression of my father felt so good for the input that he put into these young men's lives that it somehow rubbed off on me. That is not what I wanted to do. I had no idea, no way wanted to be a teacher or be in education at all. I had pursued a career in the entertainment business. I started out as a radio personality where I picked it up in college. I left LaGrange and attended Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where my major was sociology and criminal justice. But my love was radio. I got a part-time work-study job working at the radio station and fell in love with it. And after 2.5 years of college, I decided I love radio a lot more than I love college. I quit. My parents were so upset. I'm the first person in my family to ever not finish college. Not only high school, but not college. Both of my parents, HBCU graduates from Fort Valley State. My dad was the most handsome. My mom was the queen. They went on to get their master's degree at Tuskegee. I grew up in that environment. Education was a mainstay in my family, but that just wasn't a part of me. I went on to do a lot of other things, but my life changed when I had an opportunity to get a job working in the jails. That's what led me to Atlanta. I came back to Atlanta after doing 15 years at a prison in Washington, D.C. called Lord. No, I was not incarcerated. I worked there. I worked there with the juvenile system at the Lord prison. My parents had gotten old. in LaGrange. I'm the only child, the only adopted child, and I figured I owed them, so I came a little bit closer to home. I was blessed enough because another one of my dad's students, his name was Mr. Dwight Ellison. He was the head of CNN security, but he used to be a Secret Service agent for the president. And he liked the fact that I was pursuing a law enforcement career. So he gave me a referral and got me in with the City of Atlanta Detention Center. That's when things changed for me. I didn't bring this up, but I've got to bring it up because I can't talk about all the good stuff unless I talk about some of the bad that happened to take me to that situation. In 1995, I had gotten hired in 1994. In 1995, I enrolled myself in the Employee Assistance Program for the City of Atlanta. I was an officer. I had gone through a lot. I had chosen the wrong route. I ended up suffering. I ended up on drugs. I started messing with a drug called cocaine. That time, my drug of choice was freebasing. They called it freebasing, but none of it was free. I lost everything I had. I lost my wife. I lost my business. I lost my career. And I lost the respect of a lot of people that really knew me. But thank God for the Employee Assistance Program and Dr. Joseph Seymour with the City of Atlanta. He's still alive. Dr. Seymour knows I had one day after coming out of that Employee Assistance Program. This was during the month of October in 1995. I had just had a baby in 1995, and I had just had reconstructive surgery on my knee, and I was laying up recovering. And during that month of October, Minister Louis Farrakhan had an event in Washington, D.C. called the 100-Man March. And he kept making a challenge to Black men. I wasn't really watching it for the challenge. I was trying to see if I could see some girls I knew or if I could find some dudes that I knew in the D.C. area. But God had another plan. Minister Farrakhan challenged, he continued to make that challenge, and I took it seriously. I went back to work with the City of Atlanta at the jail. I got with some of my fellow co-workers. One of them you probably know now. He's moved on to be the Fulton County Sheriff. His name is Patrick Labat. Me, Labat, and several other officers got together, and now everybody in Atlanta does it. But it started with me and some officers from the city jail doing the backpack school supply giveaway. The first time it was ever done in the city of Atlanta in the state of Georgia. Me, Labat, and some other officers started that program, and that was the start of Operation Correct Start Street Academy. I really just wanted to give back some school supplies to some kids. Well, from that point on, we got noticed in the community, and I got offered a free apartment in the Bowen Homes housing projects. That apartment, I moved into that apartment. I stayed in it for a while just so that people in the community get to know me. But we worked with those kids' families, and the community in that housing project. So, Commissioner, that was the laboratory that we got a chance to try out this particular curriculum that we found to be very advantageous for young Black boys. So that's my story in a nutshell. Fast forward 20, 30 years, I've been working to save young Black males. I think I've been mandated to do that. Back in 1996, I lost one of my first boys. His name was Eric Porter. He lived over in the Etheridge community, and since then, I've lost so many young Black men. I can't count them. But I just lost another one 2 days ago, 12-year-old at Atlantic Station. So we've been doing this. I think it's probably, I didn't want to do it, but I guess it's in my blood, being around my mother and father, and it's gotten to be my passion. What we do with the Street Soldiers Saving Our Sons program is we work to basically change the beliefs and the attitudes and the values and the actions that promote violence. We have a Saturday program that we do with the boys between the ages of 8 and 15, but we also require that the parents participate via Zoom on a Tuesday night, which is called Family Night. Family Night is a time of nurturing and reinforcement, motivation, and a renewal for the child, but also for the parent. We take old people from the street soldiers that have been in here to serve as role models and mentors, and they come along and they kind of talk to the kids about the before and after stories of who they were before they kind of started using this particular curriculum, and who they've become afterwards. So that's what the curriculum is all about. We found that we started when I first started doing this in Boyne Homes. We were basically working with kids in the high school. We didn't have to worry about the kids in the middle and the elementary, but it's gone down. So now I'm working with kids as young as 10, 11 years old that have been infected by this disease of violence.
When you say disease of violence, I've often heard you use the term hood disease.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you expand on that a little bit more? What exactly is hood disease? What causes it? And more importantly, what do you think are the solutions or the prescriptions needed against what you call hood disease?
All right, thank you for that question. I want to tell you where it came from. I did not originate that. I wish I was the originator of it, but this particular training that we took, I was taught the disease of violence. We started calling it hood disease. It was initially recognized as a public health issue by a lady by the name of Deborah Protroth Smith and she wrote a book called Deadly Consequences almost 30 years ago. Also, there was a book called Monster Cody of a young man that lived out in California. He wrote that particular book. But the first time that we put a framework on this as a disease was after seeing the movie Menace to Society. I don't know if you remember that movie, but it came out probably maybe 10, 20 years ago. In this particular movie, it's about kids growing up in the hood, but everybody gets killed. Everybody in the movie gets killed. And I can remember finishing watching the DVD, and we're trying to figure out how in the world does this happen. That began my first list of risk factors that we came up with this hood disease. The risk factors of unhealthy environment, destructive language, guns, alcohol, drugs, whether you're using them or selling them, negative view of women, having an "oh dog, I don't give a damn" type attitude, friendship versus friendship. And one of the ones that we found to be very prevalent lately is material values over people. The way that these youth the way they catch this disease is how they catch any other disease. Person to person, you got to put your mask on. You got to put your mask on if you go out. You're gonna catch COVID. Well, you got to put yourself, like they used to say at my mama's church, you got to wrap yourself in the armor of God. Well, these kids need to wrap themselves up in knowing that they are having the opportunity to be infected by a disease. They get this particular disease just like any other disease through germs. Through the germs, though, but the germs that we teach them are a little bit different. They're the germs of bad information, bad advice, bad instruction, and bad examples. And none of them, they not to the kids, they don't look bad, but they look good to them. But they end up putting these kids in a situation where they're either going to die or go to jail. There's a treatment process for this disease, as with any disease that's out there. You have to treat it. You have to eliminate the risk factors. You have to make sure that you notice the symptoms. Let me some of the symptoms, just in case, because you probably might have some parents or grandparents on here. Let me give you real quick some of the symptoms of the disease and violence that they might be able to recognize real quick in a young person. If they're in and out of detention, every time you look around, he's in detention. If he's in and out of in-school suspension, if he's in and out of juvenile court, if he's set tripping, if he's always claiming if he's always claiming, am I still there? If he's always claiming neighborhoods. But one of the main things, though, if he's living by the commandments of the hood. We talked about hood disease. There are some commandments, and the commandments of the hood, the commandments of the hood are somewhat similar to the commandments of the Bible. I grew up going by the commandments of the Bible. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, honor thy mother and father. Well, these kids nowadays, they grow up by the commandments of the hood. And when I meet with them, I tell them, if you raise your hand that you believe in 4 of these commandments, there's a big chance that you've been infected with hood disease. I'm going to go through them right quick. The commandments of the hood, the first one, there are 10 of them. Thou shalt not snitch. That's one of the most important ones. They truly believe in that. Thou shalt not snitch. Thou shalt handle thy business. Thou shalt do what thou gotta do. Thou shalt be no punk. Thou shalt get thy respect. Thou shalt get thy money on. Thou shalt put in work. Thou shalt carry a gat. Thou shalt recruit. Thou shalt be down for thy set, thy hood, and thy crew. And last but not least, thou shalt be down for thy homeboy or thy homegirl, whether they right or wrong.
Wow. I tell you, this is why I wanted you to come on this show, because I think this we're at epidemic
Yes, yes,
levels.
yes, it is.
This is no longer just a problem, it's a cancer. Okay. And so thank you for being so, what I would call real, because this is what people, we've got grandparents raising children, we've got single-headed female households that are trying to raise boys and girls, and we got problems that we have to really look at and have some serious uncomfortable conversations about. In your opinion, let me ask you this, in your opinion, what ages or how young should we start mentoring uh, the youth so they can stay clear of this infection called the hood disease? How young should they be?
I am so glad you asked that question, Commissioner, because I've had to change the answer to that several times in my 27 years. But I've come to find out that how young should they be? They should be 10 seconds old. As soon as these young people come out of their mother's womb, the first role model they're going to have is who? Their parents. We've got to get to these kids immediately. We can't wait and let the world and let social media and the outside resources get to our children. We got to help some of these mothers. They have these babies, they need help. They need, it's hard for these sisters to raise boys to be men. It's so hard. Brothers, that's why and one of the things I wanted to talk about is one of the biggest things that we need outside of transportation working with these kids is I need men. I need role models. I need examples for these boys to see. I get so many women. I'm always thankful for you and the sisters because y'all always volunteering. Y'all always there. Y'all gonna participate. You're gonna volunteer. You're gonna make a donation. But these boys need to see somebody that looks just like them. That's the problem. So many successful black men came from the same place that these kids came from, and they couldn't wait to get out of the hood. These kids need to see. So what that left was the only person in the hood that they saw was the gangster, was the drug dealer, was the gangbanger. So these kids are only emulating the behavior that they see. We should be ashamed of ourselves, especially here in Atlanta. There's nothing like Atlanta nowhere else in the world when it comes to black people. There is nothing like Atlanta nowhere else in the world. So there is no reason we've got black people, especially black men, who are doing jobs. You name a job, there's somebody black doing it here in Atlanta to the utmost, to the highest echelon. Why are these kids not getting role models? We've got to work with these parents. Just think about it. When a kid gets in trouble at school, who do you send him to? Parent. The kid gets in trouble at the rec center. Who you send him to? is parents. If a kid gets in trouble with the police before they take him to juvenile court, who do they send them to? The parent. We've got to work with these parents. They can't do it by themselves. Grandmama can't raise a 12-year-old little boy. He ain't the same 12-year-old little boy that we were when we were young. At 8 years old, she was scared of him. He has formed behaviors that makes her afraid. He carrying a gun. He's smoking blunts in the back room. He bringing his boys over. He having sex at 10. Let me say this before I get out of it, because I got to say this, because you probably one of the nicest sisters I know, and you understand. Me and you have had some real deep conversations. Black women, you can't keep putting pressures on these boys, telling them that they're the man of the house. They are not. They are not. They are little boys. And when you say that to these young boys, they take it seriously. We've got to sit down holistically. We've got a part of our program, I think, that's just important as working with the boys in the hood disease. There's a component of our program that's called Parents as Mentors. It's called Parents as Mentors. And that's where we take time to work with these parents, because sometimes there's not a workbook that comes with having a child. You know, you got to work with them. And one thing I learned from my mother and father, my mama used to tell me all the time, she said, Bruce, you can't teach them nothing until they know you love them. Once a child knows that you give a damn, they'll go to the end of the world for you. And I'm gonna be quiet on this note. Our savior, especially in the Black community, is gonna come from one of these little boys in one of these little communities that we look down on now. That's where he gonna come from. That's why I'm working so hard to save these children, because who's gonna save us? It's gonna be one of them.
Before we close, give what you consider to be some of our prescriptions, so to speak, for hood disease, and also how the viewing audience can get in touch with you and all of your social media and website information.
The more you know, the more you owe. I ain't gonna do a whole bunch of talking, but I hope you heard what I said. If you're watching, you know what it took for you to be successful. Some of you watching came from the same kind of conditions these little boys I'm working with come from. You might have forgot. You might not even tell nobody. But if you know, you owe. I'm gonna say that again. The more you know, the more you owe. And I'm gonna leave it at that, because I could do a whole lot of talking to a whole lot of people. But y'all heard exactly what I said. The more you know, the more you owe. My name is Bruce Griggs. If you want to get involved in the program, our website is www.correctstart.org. That's CORRECTSTART.org. Or you can Google my name. My name is Bruce, BRUCE, Griggs, GRIGGS. Thank you again. I want to leave you with a word of prayer. Say this to yourself, say this to your child every day. I am one. I am only one. I may not can do all things, but I can do some things. What I can do, I ought to do. And by the grace of God, I shall do. Peace and blessings, everybody.
Well, Mr. Griggs, thank you for such a passionate plea. We appreciate here at the Mighty Six Conversations with Khadijah. This is a show for Fulton County to bring information to the community. And like I said earlier, the epidemic is here. We must come together as the beloved village and do our part. And clearly, you are doing yours. So we thank you again for coming and being on the show. You take care and understand that you always can make a change in somebody's life. And I appreciate the change that you're making in the lives of the young people in Fulton County. The status of children continues as a major priority with District 6 and throughout Fulton County. Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, the school that I'm an alumnus of, once stated a child must learn early to believe that he is somebody worthwhile and that he can do many praiseworthy things. We are grateful for programs like Saving Our Sons and many others throughout Fulton County that are making a difference. That's all the time we have for today's conversation. Until the next time, stay strong. To learn more about today's conversation, contact me at 404-612-8222. That's 404-612-8222. You can also email me at khadija.abdur-rahman, R-A-H-M-A-N, at fultoncountyga.gov. Visit us online at commissionerkhadija.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.